Well, hello there. How are you all doing? Hope you're all having a great day. I've been decent, actually. Been thoroughly busy, but yeah, making good progress. The blind rework that we were doing is essentially there. It's currently, well, I should hopefully do a release to the Patreon in after the stream, um, and going out publicly this weekend. Assuming no critical issues get found in the meantime, of course. So, with that in mind, we can immediately start on something new, which in this case will be tournaments. The main thing, or the main goal, is to plan out and think about how tournaments could work. Well, take it from where we currently are, look at what we'd like to do, where we'd like to take it, what makes a good tournament, and how that we can pull that in and represent that inside Central Known Mountains. So yeah, that is the goal of the stream. Lots of drawing on a whiteboard and talking about it. With that in mind, I will actually drop a link to this if anyone wants to view it as something a bit more scrollable versus obviously what I'm going to be showing on my screen. You can do so. Uh, oh, 1 second. How is this broken? I hasn't changed anything. Is this one at least right? Wait, what the? Um, is that any better? Does that now work? Oh, wait a second. Okay, for some reason it decided to connect to the microphone in my earphones for computers. How do they work? Anyway, assuming this is now correct, we will continue. So, tournaments. Oh, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Right, where is my Twitch? There we go. Now we know where I am. Right, so yes, anyway, tournaments. So, where are we currently? Let's add some lovely little boxes here. Can we add text directly to one of these? Do we have to overlay it? Ah, current. Can we lock these together? Group selection. Nice. This is obviously going to be showing my complete inexperience with Excalibur. Oh, neat. That worked. Good. Single elimination. Actually, let's get rid of this box. We don't need the box. So, obviously, it's a single elimination tournament that has hidden information about combatants. It also has Fixed rewards. No player choices. What's this got? No healing for the player. Obviously, enemies do heal. And the progression is also random. Combatant advancing is random. So I think that probably covers the broad strokes. And or is it combat only? This is all the different things that it currently has, and some of these, as you can tell, are restrictions. Well, actually, let's group this a bit more. These ones here, or maybe I guess these ones here, are the restrictions around the design. So it was just simpler to build this way. Single elimination is to keep it simple. So that is obviously something that is good. Keeping it simple. This bit here, give me a box. These are all what I will call lazy designs. Stuff that was done to make sure that the scope of building it was a little bit simpler. Put a line from there to there. And make that there so that my sanity is good. And then these are, I guess, design decisions that aren't necessarily done because they were easier. Ooh. They're done simply because. And there's no real reason that they were done other than we didn't do anything else. So obviously those can be very easily changed. So this is roughly the design of the current one. I'll put that there. Oop, zoom in. There we go. Maybe we'll make this a little bit bigger, or maybe just underline it or something. Nope, give me that. Do you have... something to make it look more impactful? Make it gold. There we go. Beautiful. So each of these are things that we probably want to address in some form or another with the new system. But let's write down roughly my thoughts around what makes a good system. Or I should say, things that go into tournaments in Xantia fiction. Where should I put it? Put it down underneath, yeah. What makes a cool tournament? Oh, thank you. Much appreciated. Well, I appreciate the effort, Ari. It's very much appreciated. So, what makes a cool tournament? Obviously, these things show up a lot in Xantia. Well, I guess in a lot of stories, anime and stuff too. Actually, I'll just put that in the middle. Well, it's more that I didn't add anything that allowed people to heal. Because
there was actually a little bit of history to this one. It was first because between each fight, you would start the fights at full health, but that meant you could essentially go all the way through the battle, and as long as you did the whole maybe like blood suicide thing and you won, you'd get a full heal. So it felt kind of weird that also this place is the only place you could instantly heal to full for nothing. And obviously elsewhere you wouldn't. The but also enemies aren't actually simulated throughout the combat, so they would also always start at full health. So the fact that there was this mismatch felt weird. The fact where we currently are feels weird, where the player doesn't heal but the enemies do. There's a whole lot of weirdness around this that probably needs a bit of polishing. Something that probably should be built into the tournament itself, where you can heal or you can do something else. Or enemies are in the same state, or we just say that you get healed up to full before each fight, and we go back to that state. There's quite a few different options that are fine to be on the table. Yes, what makes a cool tournament? Yeah, exactly. There should be player choices other than just I want to fight more. There should be stuff to do. Get buffs, get some other stats, interfere with your opponent, something. So, of course, the very top reason for any tournament is the rewards. There always has to be some sort of stake that makes the main character want to do it, that makes the attempt to win feel worthwhile. So I'd say the very, very top thing has to be cool rewards. Now, the next thing. Oh, maybe actually, let me change that. Rewards or stakes? You could have a tournament where the reason is to not die or something. The next one, rivals. Now, every tournament arcs are stories in and of themselves, where the characters have, or the best ones, they have arcs within the tournament. There is rivals. There is, the top seed to beat. There is the arrogant character to overcome. Stuff like that. And another one, the crowd. I'd say this is what differentiates a tournament from, say, just a normal fight, where, or a normal bit of adventuring, where the real thing that makes it feel like a tournament is the reactions of the crowd, the announcers, the arrogant sect leaders who look down on the main character and then get humbled. Things like that. That's what takes it from being just your average encounter to being something that's impactful. And that should also extend out beyond the tournament. Having people reflect back that, this is the character that did, overcame the young master in their own school or something along those lines. Those callbacks are powerful. Yeah. So the rivals portion needs to have, that's about the story. There needs to be story baked in for you to feel like you are invested in how the tournament progresses, or across years or across centuries, how that tournament goes on. And yes, you could have that part. Now, what else do we have here? I guess maybe just the story. There is obviously a portion of, well, most good tournaments should have a good story that fight. It kind of feeds into the rest of these, but generally would have its own portion separate from that. Like, why does the tournament exist? What is the reason for it? Is it, the once in a generation, proving ground to gain access to the secret realm, or is it to honor a specific ancestor, or is it to gain something? There has to be a backstory and a in-tournament story to make the tournament itself feel worthwhile, not just a random event. Yeah. I'd say personally, I'd put all of those into the rivals bucket, where it's about the the characters that you encounter and what they do. That's the one who backstabs you or pushes unfair fights. The one who's like, we are best friends, but we're on opposite sides, so we need to do our best. It's the revenge story of encountering someone in a place where you can finally get your revenge against some slight that they've done. I think most of the story around that would take part around the other character in it, or partially as part of the crowd, where the crowd has, I'd but not just a generic crowd, but also things like the announcers or uh, the leaders of other factions, things like that. Let's write those down. General public, announcer, sect, leaders, slash, important people, or even the disruptors. I know that quite a common trope with tournament arcs is when the tournament gets disrupted, when things are going great, and then the bad guys take that as an opportunity to attack or do something. Um, the one that sticks in my mind always is the in Naruto when that exact thing happens. Absolutely fantastic scene. You think everything's going good, and then boom, the whole thing gets derailed. So the tournament doesn't necessarily need to conclude in a when there is a leader. It can go up to the part way and then potentially branch off. That's all part of the story internally, I'd say. So let's put some of this further down. Spread these bits out a little bit more. So out of rivals, we have ourselves I mean, it would be a pretty cool scene. Well, how feasible a lot of these things are to build, we'll come, we'll figure things out. I mean, it's only for this portion of it I'm doing right now. This is not necessarily what's going to be possible to represent in a satisfying way within the game. It's more the possibilities that we can pull from and try and condense down into something that can be represented as a game. So our different kinds of rivals. We have our basic, the enemy, the ally. Let's do our best. I'll put you in your place. The cheetah. Yeah, I don't have a little quote for that one, but you know the idea. They're gonna be the one that steals all the stuff. You know, takes the forbidden potion, something like that. Outbest. Ah, yeah, there we go. Our best. Always make that mistake. Um. What else? What could we? What other options are there? Within the rivals thing, there is the a couple of, I guess, tropes of potential characters that we can also have. Except beyond these few, we have yeah. Let's call it the champion. I think that's normally which fits into that kind of like the fan favorite, the one the crowd always expects. It is the champion, the one to overcome. Actually, Ari, I was about to put that one down. Yeah. The hidden master. Also, the eminence in the shadow. There we go. Great show, by the way. If you haven't seen it or read it, I would recommend. Um, the overconfident, I guess. The character that overestimates their own ability kind of normally fits in with the enemy, but the less competent one. The overconfident fool. Hmm. The Shaogan, indeed. Yeah, I mean, we got some points there. Let's move on to rewards and stakes. Actually, you know what? Let me just grab all of that and bring it down a bit more. Oops, wrong button again. Okay, rewards and stakes. So for this, why even doing the tournament? Obviously, the simplest one is artifacts / treasures. The mystical item, the inheritance of the. Oops, I did not mean to press that. Well, inheritance, if you're talking about specifically items. The learnings, techniques, manuals, arts, things like that. Yeah, so why would you want to do a tournament? Why the MC going to do the tournament? Recognition from a recognition. Masters, stuff like that. Access? Not what I'm looking for. Maybe just access is good enough. Entry to the sect. Entry admittance to the order. Things like that. So stuff where the tournament is a way to prove your ability. What else? I mean, of course, you can have the more. I don't know how often they use this, but it's the reward is external. It is you're being told to do the tournament by an external third party to reach a particular goal to get some sort of reward. And in my eyes, the most common one is a threat. You must reach the first place in the tournament, or your sister will die, or you must become top 5 so that we will release or we will help your friend. There is some sort of external party pushing you to do it. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the more friendly one. Is the master told you to do its training? I'll put that in here as training. As simple as that. Now, of course, some of these do have an overlap with the story of the why. Actually, you know what? I'm going to move that to the why. Put that in there. Yep, yeah. To help a friend to gain access to. Well, this is kind of like, again, part of a reward. Select entry. Promotion requirement. What are the reasons do they run tournaments? To prove the might of a group. Select guild, race. Race one is quite common. I find in like Korean fiction. They seem to love the multiverse kind of mega tournaments and mega group pairings. Very cool concept. Very cool. Yep, access to something. Let's change that. Access to something. Select treasure land. Inheritance. Oops. What else we got here then? Why would it run? Let me see. I think back to all the different tournaments in fiction that I've watched. Mostly it's just because. I mean, I guess the most common one, let's put that one first, is to prove you are awesome. I mean, that's obviously the framing of most tournaments is to give the main character or another character who the author wants a way to prove their strength above the other characters. Nothing wrong with that. Immensely cool to watch, a ton of fun. That's why it exists. Yep. Yeah. The Dragon Ball, Goku goes off and does a whole load of training to come back to do the world tournament and show how much he's grown. Oh, right, okay, fair enough. That is both to show the results. Actually, I'm going to put a separate line. To show the results of training. So you have the tournament as the capstone to an entire training arc to then prove how well you've done. If you want to move this to like Ascend from Nine Mountains, it could be the fact that you have a very hard tournament that you're put into that you're intended to lose. And then you go off and you can do all this training and stuff and get stronger. And then with a fixed date where the tournament will run again, and you will then return and you can finally see that you have progressed because you can win. That is a key part of making the player have a indication of their progress, which is obviously very important for people to feel like they're doing something. So, does that cover everything about what makes a cool tournament? I mean, obviously, you need there's a lot of nuance based on how you combine these points, but I think that covers the main points and the main things of how the tournament runs. Oh, actually, you know what? Yes, yes. Thinking about how can we make tournaments even cooler. I think we need another thing. The format. Not all tournaments are made equal. There is variety in how a tournament is run. I will say the most common of these is single elimination combat. You have and sometimes it's combined with like a small preliminary round. But the main structure of the tournament is a one-on-one fight between two characters, and the winner moves on to fight the next one. And generally, the champion or the telegraphed strongest character makes it to the end to face the main character. The main character has that, they're watching their rival at the other end of the bracket slowly close in on them, and then they have the finale. Now, of course, there's some stories that subvert that, where they, instead of having this clear progression for the player, they have the player fail early for some reason or another. A story event, a branch where a character sabotage them, and then you still follow through to the end, but you get the player to have, or the main character, have this alternative route, which then gives them an equivalent reward or story-based reward to winning the tournament. Yes, yeah. So a common, I'd say, when the tournament gets disrupted, there's probably like two ways that happens. It's the organizers being bad, and that's sometimes through like the tournament organizer is biased towards a certain character. If it's originally framed as being unfair to what, as in like they have a bias. Like if you want to look at something common at the moment, FIFA, where they have a bias towards certain teams that they want to go through. The other one is where the tournament organizers are clearly in opposition to every entrant in the tournament. They have no favor. They hate everyone equally. And their entire goal is to or make it as exciting as possible. This is, I guess, things like the Hunger Games, stuff where the tournament organizers are essentially making life miserable for every tournament participant. I think that's all the kind of stuff that will come up in the story portion. Let's just put that in here whilst we nattering on about it. unfair tournament. Bias towards one side. Manipulation or excitement. Stuff like that. Now, I'm a massive fan. Yeah, that's probably a better way of phrasing it. I'm a massive fan of a story called Hell Difficulty Tutorial. Again, would highly recommend it. One of their quite recent arcs had a tournament like this, where the organizers are obviously trying to make things difficult for every participant. Fantastic. Another good one is Dungeon Crawler Carl. Again, similar concept. The tournament is designed to be as unfair to every participant as possible. And anytime someone's doing well, they are sabotaged through something or another. So those kind of things come across really well, especially when that makes the tournament organizers or runners the obvious antagonist of it. And even though you have rivals in the tournament, it's more of a friendly rivalry because you have a shared enemy, which is the organizers themselves. Now, that's unlikely to be something we can translate into Ascent from Nine Mountains because you need a very explicit power dynamic between the organizers and the participants. That means the participants can't just say, screw you, I'm not doing this. They need to be trapped or overpowered or forced to take part. And if you're forced to do something like that, it generally feels bad as a player, but it makes for a great story. However, conceptually, cool idea. It will write it down because, hey, maybe we'll find an opportunity to integrate something like that. So yeah, anyway, back to formats. Single elimination combat, most common thing ever. Next one down, the Grand Melee. Chuck everyone into an arena and let them all fight it out. Last one standing wins. Very. And this one can also be single or team. These ones are exciting. Again, Hunger Games, that's what that is. You have. Yep, yeah. Things like that where the tournament itself overflows into the crowd. Either that is via an active disruption, where the crowd then gets attacked. The participants break out, which can obviously link quite nicely to the unfair tournament setup, where you have the crowd being part of the antagonists. So breaking out is exciting, or just as a signifier for the power of the characters, where the shields meant to hold them is unable to do so. Yeah, so anyway, a single eliminator tournament, the Grand Melee. What other kind of formats do we have? Gauntlet? Traps, monsters, and points. Now, I'd say this is more where the tournament is a challenge to maximize a score coming from a variety of different aspects. Quite often this links into some sort of you need to get from point A to point B and overcome what's in between. It could be the Grand Monster Hunt where you have to go and hunt certain monsters. It could be you need to get like a white scroll and a black scroll, and every team gets a white scroll and every other team gets a black scroll, and you need to somehow knock them out, kind of thing. Something where it's more complicated than just fighting. There is a gamified aspect to it. Now, of course, what I've described overlaps heavily with the Grand Melee, where you have the puzzle, I guess, or the gamified aspect is related to the other teams. But I'd say the more common one of that is where they're all put into a same place and need to get through a thing. What other sort of tournaments have we got? I mean, these are obviously all combat ones so far. And we want to go beyond that. We want to be able to integrate crafting and other things like that. But I guess the for the crafting ones, I'd say the more common one is where you have both sides need to make a pill that's then reviewed. Maybe the judges, yeah. So what do you mean ladder events? Not quite following how that differs from a single elimination. Maybe I just don't know what you're referring to. Yeah, so the judges, that's where both sides make something, it's rated. This is obviously the exciting tournaments where you have, like, a personal favorite show of mine is Shokugeki no Soma. I absolutely love watching the ridiculous cooking stuff, and the scoring is done by a panel of judges. You have, yeah, it's not combat, it is reviews, and the two sides are compared by the opinions of the judges. Yep. I mean, I think that the guy was a hentai artist in his past, and it definitely comes across when you when you look at the art. But it is a lot of fun. I mean, okay, a different one and one that maybe is less known is Yakutaki Japan. Absolutely love that show. Again, it's the exact same format, just not as sexual. But I think clothes do still blow off in that one as well, so it's probably not too far away. It's just animated in a slightly less horny fashion. Yeah, so off the collecting points and things, I was sort of putting that into the gauntlet here, but maybe there's a better way to phrase it where you have a, I guess it's like leaderboard style. I'm going to remove points from here actually. Collect the orbs. Get the points. Find the rare thing. Yeah, I mean, tournaments of skill. The single elimination does sort of cover things like the judges, which is what I call the tournament of skill. There is a third party judge that could be a variety of different things. Doesn't have to be people. It could be, some magical artifact, or just, you're whacking something with a hammer to see how high it flies, and it's literally the ruler that says it. Those all are part of this one. That can be implemented through a single elimination tournament, a bracket-based thing. And yeah, the bounties like randomize or strength-based points, all this like leaderboard style. You do something to gain points that then positions you comparative to the other teams or other participants on a leaderboard at the end. There is the slightly more specific. There is the King of the Hill. Take on as many challenges as you can. It's not a bracketed tournament, but you have the character that stands on top of the magical mound and everyone else comes and challenges them, and they never back down. They stay on there the whole time. Yeah, I think that covers it. Are there any other formats that I've missed? I think that's probably good. I would say. At least it's enough to get going with and thinking about it. So, as you can see, this is our possibility space of what we could turn, the threads that we can pull on to make tournaments exciting. This is where we currently are. Yep, both of those I think would come into a single elimination combat where you have some sort of way of building that seed, that bracket through your seeds. I mean, of course, there's other types of tournaments, and let's just write them down just to be sure. Double elimination. Oops. Swiss round of 10 or something on those lines. Maybe there's other variants of actually structuring a tournament that I can't think of right now. Yeah. Cool. So, the next part is, what could a player do? So we'll kind of just make that its own section and talk about the things that a player could have input on. There we go. We've got a little thingy here. So these are the decisions that a player should be making. Can win. Win the tournament. Obviously, that is a tournament? Meant? There we go. That's how you spell tournament. As you would think, you'd want them to be able to progress to win. That is something they need to have interactivity on. These are all. Let's change this. Not what can a player do, what could a player do. It's not a guarantee that the player will be able to do this thing. It's more of a thought of what possibilities could there be. Choose. There we go. Choose their opponent. As scouting. Yep. So they could have the opportunity to understand who their opponents are and choose the one they want to take on, or understand about their capabilities in some form or another. That obviously does mean that the tournament needs to be structured in a way where the brackets are not they're not fixed. It would probably require a pool of enemies or some other form of assigning combats. But yeah, it's a possibility. They could also, if we're going to give them Why can't I not draw a box? There we go. Sabotage. They can be the one to do the whole slip the potion into their opponent's drink kind of thing. Break the weapon. Slip them the potion. An opportunity to be mean, be evil, break the rules. They could gamble, indeed. Bet on yourself, bet on others, throw the fight. They can gamble away. Oops. Ah, good lord, what's going on here? Why? Fair enough, I guess, but an odd feature to add, certainly. Right, what's another one? Empower themselves. Healing buffs. Some way of strengthening themselves, potentially as part of this choosing your opponent and scouting. To focus yourself down to win the thing that's coming up. Taking up on those lines. Yep. Disrupt the tournament, indeed. Oops. Disrupt the tournament. Bribe the judge. Refuse the fight. Attack the antagonist. Stuff that takes it outside the rules of the tournament. What? Okay. What else? What else? What else? Now, of course, there is for some of these ones here, which aren't just a combat, there is scouting of the challenge. Understand the challenge. Understand the challenge. This is the learning about the thing that's to come up. It's the Harry Potter has to put the egg underwater to find out that he needs to get gills or something. It's the understanding the challenge that's about to face you, so you can prepare. Now, this is normally involving some form of scouting, information retrieval, sometimes lines where you're going out and you are finding either as part of the challenge, like the expectation is that you'll do this, or find it, so you have to do it, otherwise you're screwed, or having an unfair advantage or an unexpected advantage over what's to come because of your efforts. Yeah, continuous story. Exactly. That is another thing the player should be able to do. Refight the rival. Overcome the historical failure. Yeah. Generally, this is done as a sort of a comeback thing, where the player or the main character will have a scene where they either lose or something happens that puts them in an underdog position, and then they come back and they then get that sweet catharsis of winning, of overcoming what hurt them in the past or defeated them in the past. One of my personal favorites, manipulating the crowd. Exciting them. What's it called? Antagonize, riling them up. I can't spell antagonizing. Stuff that involved interacting with the crowd and gaining something from it. Yep. Taking, like, this can be something like, I think this happened quite cool in another good story, which is Path of Ascension. There is a very cool tournament quite late on, in that, where the main characters are undercover, and there's a lot of like working the crowd, of doing something to get them excited and invested in the characters. I think there's a similar thing in Dungeon Crawler Carl, where they have these events where they go on TV, I guess, and they sort of encourage people to give them gifts for some reason. It's all about getting people, getting the crowd, getting the onlookers excited about the player or the main character, and their particular journey. Often these are linked with gifts, where there is some sort of ability for external parties to give competitors resources or treasures or something along those lines. But it can also just be as simple as something that is going to benefit them after the tournament. If they are going to get the approval of the great master or something like that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I think the idea of being the organizer yourself is pretty darn solid. Organize it yourself. You are the boss. Now, this is actually quite relevant to Ascent from Nine Mountains, because at a certain point, you will be the strongest person in the world. You will not have anyone to fight. You will not have the tournament competitors to overcome. So either we cut tournaments completely at that point, or we flip it round. You are now the strongest person. You are going to be the person overseeing the. You're going to be that leader who's sitting at the head of the pride of place, overlooking the tournament, running the tournament, sponsoring it, and giving your approval to the people who fought in it. So this one, I think we will definitely need to hit, so that you can get that sense that you have now entered that powerful position that you saw other characters in when you first started the game. What else? What else? What else? I think there's a lot of. I think this covers the main points for things the player could do. Probably. Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. Let's start to actually try to combine these into what makes what an Ascend from Nine Mountains tournament could look like. So I think I'll first start with looking at the specifics around what other tournaments have. So if we're going to look at, say, Hell of Immortal, a great example. What do their tournaments look like? So these ones are much simpler. Ooh, that's cool. So I'm getting distracted by Scalador's features now. Okay. So theirs are, I guess, technically a single elimination. Well, okay, they have a couple of different ones. They have the like sect entry ones. Now I haven't played Tale of Immortal for a little while, so I can't remember. Do tell me if I'm being dumb, if I missed something here. The sect entry ones. Then they have the intersect ones. Sect tournaments. Yep, that's part of the sect tournament one, isn't it? Where you enter as a sect, and then there's a King of the Hills thing at the end. I don't think they have one of those for like an individual tournament, right? Intra-sect. Yes, the scared opponent. You know what? Let's put that to the coward. No show. Okay, so the sect entry ones. These are technically a single elimination bracket. They also have a top 10 go through. Dual cultivation tournament. That's what we need. For those people who want to go and do a ranked sect rather than casual sects. So yeah, we have the basic tournament, which is simply a sect entry tournament, single elimination, combat, top end go through. I don't remember if there was a reward for coming first, other than bragging rights. Doesn't matter. It's not important. The intersect ones are certainly far more exciting. Those are the ones where you actually take part a bit more. Yep. So that part of that is the issue with the lack of real rivals, which is something we want to address. So the intersect ones, it's a much more complicated. It has a artifact handout, or some sort of reward. I'm not spelling it the American way. Is it artifacts? It's just items, isn't it? Items distribution. Assignment. Items assignment. It then has this whole thing where you have to like assign people to fight other people. The bracket, the match up assignment. It then has a single. Is it single elimination? No, because if you lose, if you lose, you're just out, right? No, it's not. It's a points-based system, isn't it? So it's like a ladder based system where if you win more, you get more points. And then it finishes in the King of the Hill. I think it has been a while since I played it, so I might be completely misremembering all of this. I think those are the two tournaments that Tale of Immortal has. Cool. There is obviously this is a lot more exciting than this. Part of it is also because this is a better UI. Now that is obviously going to be a major component of making this new system look good. So, what would an Ascend from Nine Mountains one look like? And let's be specific. Festival tournament. And we'll also maybe break these down into different things. So the goal. The goal of a festival tournament is to prove your dedication to a progenitor. Prove your or to a school specifically. Okay, historically, let's go with prove your skill with a school. Prove your mastery of a school / dedication to a progenitor. There is a very strong religious undertone to these festivals. So that's obviously going to factor into how it's framed. So, of course, the current framing is just the announcers and the onlookers are just like, this is hype, this is cool, let's have it be fun. It needs to be a... Okay, it doesn't need to... Let me make a box, thank you. No? Fine. Okay. There we go. 1 on 1 combat. This is obviously a restriction of the game. Like, as much as I love the Grand Melee, I don't think it's going to be feasible to build into Ascend from Nine Mountains 1. One of the things that I'd love to do with a sequel would be to make the combat system more flexible to larger scale fights and small scale fights. So we can have a Grand Melee. We can have battlefields full of enemies and all that kind of fun stuff. Wait, this should be format. And then we will... But these are really the easy parts. These are what will not change. The goal and the format. The bits that are need to change is the actions. What does the player do? Because the moment is not good. The moment it is far too static. The actions. Or maybe interactivity is better. We want... Actually, 2 parts of this. Let me put interactivity at the bottom. I think first I want to talk about rivals. Now, the tournaments do need rivals. And we need to make them more exciting. The most important one, I think, is going to be the champion. We will seed... We'll probably seed every tournament with a champion that will be the person you reach at the end. They are a named character. Named character. Custom art. Now, of course, they are named in the so far as they will probably be linked to conceptually who's best at that. Like maybe the champion of the weapon tournament will be a Jinshu, or a Heavenly Sword member, someone who has a tie to. Wait, the Heavenly Sword don't have tie to the weapon, do they? Jade Serpent. There we go. You know, someone who has a tie to that school. They should be consistently the champion. So consistently faced last. Probably. We just make this look a little bit nicer. So the champion is going to be that finale character who you will eventually face at the end. Given how many tournaments there are for the festivals, we probably don't want to have that many more rivals than that. Just to, keep it simple. Though thinking about it more, maybe we could actually have some alternatives that flow through. The champion is going to be the capstone, the person that people write build guides around. Like, this is a build that you can use to overcome Jeff Lynn or whatever whatever we call the celestial champion, because they are always in the core formation one. It's always that character with that build, and they are significantly stronger than the others. But we can also have the ongoing arcs of alternatives. Recurring rivals. Now, these ones, like the main character, could be people who practice, or at least try to practice, multiple schools. And they will be present in multiple tournaments. So you can actually follow those stories in multiple tournaments. Try different schools. Ongoing story told over multiple encounters. Potentially turn into a companion at end. Something along those lines. Something where each time you encounter them in a tournament, you get a piece of their story, an advancement. Maybe it's a character who doesn't quite gel with any of the schools, and they are learning as they go. They're going, I didn't quite like Blood. I actually vibe more with Cloud, as anyone should, because Cloud is the best school. You'll have to encounter them in multiple non-Cloud tournaments first, where they try different things. They don't do super well. You have a whole story arc, a little event as part of it, where they get jeered at because they're bad at the school, until they eventually land on the school they really enjoy, and they then do really well. Potentially, they then replace the champion as the person at the head. Something where there is an ongoing story. Vice versa. There is a named character of a particular school that, when they get beaten, get more and more angry, get more and more bitter, and eventually disrupt a tournament through some sort of action, turn into demonic practice or something along those lines. So I think these two, a consistent champion for each tournament that is the strongest one, the strongest character, is going to be quite important. And a recurring set of characters that you'll see cross tournaments. And this is specific for the festival ones. Obviously, for other tournaments, we'll talk about some different stuff. But the interactivity, this is the important part to make it a bit more engaging. What decisions can the player make in a tournament that means it's not just 5 fights in a row or something, that they just hammer spacebar through? What can they do that makes it stand out as a mini game in its own right? Now, that requires a couple of different things. A system, an idea that I've been playing with is what I call the excitement system. Given that the reason that tournaments are exciting is the fact that they have a crowd, something that interacts with that crowd will be critical to make it feel real. And this is more than just. This is like a wide-reaching thought around how the crowd would interact. Because certainly with all of this, all of the Tale of Immortal, in fact, and all the current one, everything is very individualistic. You could easily just replace all of those with just a random monster in a field, and it will mechanically be the same. And I think that's a shame, because that misses, in my opinion, one of the critical parts is the reactions of other people and their interactions with it. So, the excitement system is what I was coming up with around that. The main portion of this would be a way of tracking how excited the crowd is. So this is going to represent that energy, that, like buzz of the crowd getting behind the player or potentially another character, but most likely player, because that's where the point of view will be. And being enthusiastic about what they do. Now, this needs a way of building some sort of mechanics. I'll write down my thoughts on that in a second. Representation in combat. So visually show the crowd, have them interject. Now this, I think, is going to sort of overlap with another element that I want to add, who appears. It's the announcer. The announcer is very present in the before and after dialogue, but it's completely missing from a combat itself. They don't even have custom art. They do definitely need to be more impactful. Like, if you think back to Dragon Ball, what makes the tournaments so hype is the announcer. Well, like with any, for example, any esport, any show, any sports, it's the announcers who inject energy. The hype casters, the ones who go give the onlooker a sense of how awesome it is. Obviously, this is slightly muted by the fact that the person who is doing the fighting or doing the thing is the player. The player's already built their build, they already know it. But if we have someone who's going to make the player feel good about that build. You know, they're going to be like, "Oh, did you see that hit?" And you know, if a critical hit happens, for example, there is a pop-up where the announcer goes, "An unbelievable hit by lidar." You know, there's no way the opponent's going to recover from that one, or something that acknowledges how low their health got. You know, they're playing blood and they have 400 blood corruption and they're hovering at 10% health, and the announcer gets excited about that. If these things can like pop up within combat or be at least acknowledged before and after combat, I think it will go a long way towards making the combat feel like a real event rather than just a thing you quickly click through. And that it goes as part of the excitement. So the way to represent and mechanically the way that we'd probably want to gate these what would they call them? Interjections, shouts, things like that, would be how high the excitement is. So yeah, we've got the representation in combat. We have that, and oh, get off my screen. What are the stuff we have? Linked rewards. As always, players are heavily reward driven. If there's no value behind doing it, people generally won't take part. No matter how fun a particular mechanic might be, especially in this game where it is very much every player's been trained to seek out value, they likely won't play if there's not enough reward doing so. This isn't like a Slay the Spire where people are going for the challenge of playing a run for the sake of it. They're playing to make their character stronger, so if something doesn't contribute to that, then they aren't going to do it. So there needs to be rewards, more significant rewards linked to tournaments, so that people have an incentive to come back and do them. And that needs to scale all throughout the game. Well, up until the point where tournaments exist. And we'll get to that later. So there needs to be linked rewards, and of course, if there's an interactivity of the system, there need to be rewards linked to that system. Precious. Linked buffs. Some way of, within the tournament, representing that excitement, other than just the visual aspect of interjections, the crowd images, that kind of thing. Some way of showing maybe a power increase. You know, the energy of the crowd gives you a power boost. And then, of course, the most important one. Oh, we've already got it. So, way of building, yeah. So, with that in mind, we have ourselves the way of building. So the other portion that combat, especially in tournaments, it's very static. You build your build, obviously, most likely before the tournament, a long way before the tournament, and then you just run it. And it doesn't matter who you're up against, you run the same one, you don't change anything, you don't think about changing anything. The build is the build. And that's something we want to change. And I think it should be linked to the assignment system. The concept would be you would take your each round, select a patron from the crowd to please. They will have a restriction. You have to comply with to gain excitement. E.G. Win in 9 rounds. Don't use items. Oh wait, yeah. Let me tweak this. Win. Let me reframe it better. +10 excitement. lose 1 per round. Oops. Excitement on victory, lose 1 per round. +5 excitement if you win without using an item, not pills, items. What was the other one? Oh, +1 excitement for each unique technique you used. Things like that, where you have a set of options to select from to cause you to play slightly differently or tweak your build in some fashion, and you'll build excitement off of it. So you have an aspect of choosing a. You could say it's a curse from a mystical region or something along those lines, but really it's a challenge that you can do if you like, or if you don't care. Just don't. And then I guess it's obviously just an option of 3, because 3 is the magic number that you can pick from. This is how you would build excitement. And excitement would then give you both a power buff and at the end give you some sort of treasure. And obviously control or influence the way that the crowd is rendered and represented throughout the actual combat itself, so that you can see people getting hyped about you as a player. And that would probably be represented by just a bar somewhere, maybe like across the top of the screen that fills up, or on the right side of the main bracket view. I'm just going to quickly put another one here. Size. Now, I think at the moment tournaments are too small. They feel very limited. There's 3 rounds, so there's 8 contestants. We probably want to make this, at least visually, maybe like 5 rounds. So the tournament itself feels a lot bigger and more impactful and more exciting. So the player will have 5 fights rather than 3. We can tidy all these up. There we go. Okay, so we have ourselves an excitement system. Now, a secondary interactivitiness should be between each fight and action. Between fight actions. Now, this is where all of this stuff can come in. Like, I don't think the choosing your opponent makes sense, so we won't do that one. Sabotage. A very cool idea. We need some way of representing some sort of negativity. Maybe there's a chance if you try and sabotage, you will either be successful and it will work, or you'll fail and you'll get disqualified and kicked out. And people can roll the dice, gamble on will they win or not. Gambling, and monetary gambling is obviously something that could be quite interesting. The main issue with this one is the player assumes that they will win, and they will just feel extra bad if they lose, if they've gambled on themselves. I think the gambling on others, however, might be interesting, where you get shown the other brackets that are going to run at the same time as yours, and for each you can put a bet down of which of the 2 contestants will win. And then it's less hard, less fixed in stone. And maybe it's specifically ones that are close to you. So you can't just bet the rival is going to win, the champion, because you know they will win. Maybe it's you can gamble on anything that doesn't have a named rival in it. So all those other fights you can. It would be essentially fully flipping a coin unless you know up front. Assuming that, of course, we change it to simulating the combat between the two contestants rather than what we currently do, which is literally flip a coin. If it actually simulates the combat, you could potentially learn names to know who's better and who's worse, so who's more likely to win these fights. And actually, speaking of, we should do that. So that the later you get in the tournament, enemies become harder because they are ones that have eliminated their competitors. Let's put it on the format. One-on-one combat. Actually simulate enemy matches to what's it called? Actually simulate enemy matches. That's probably good enough. So between fight actions. The first of which will be the simplest, heal. People go, I'd want the ability to heal between fights. We should give people the option, but it is a choice. You are giving up doing something else to be able to do so. The next one. Buff yourself. Some sort of way of mentally preparing yourself, giving yourself a benefit, enhancing yourself. Last one fight. But maybe you can only use it once per tournament. You can figure out when you want to use your enhancement. Sabotage your opponent. Risky. Can get disqualified. What are the ones? The gambling portion. Gamble on other fighters. Except named rivals. Something along those lines, so that you have an ability to take a guess, or an educated guess on who's going to do better and who's going to do worse. What other things can we have from this list that we actually want to add? I think maybe disrupt the tournament would be kind of like factored under sabotage or in some fashion. Yeah, ignore that. I think actually disrupting the tournament properly would have to factor into a story. So there should be, maybe not the festival tournaments, but maybe other tournaments, there should be an ability to interact with story elements that have happened that allow you to effect change. So that could be as simple as you just advance a plot. You meet a character, they're doing something, and you advance the plot by talking to them. It could be there is a secret thing that you learn from outside the tournament that you then can action. It gives you an extra special action that appears you can click within the tournament that allows you to then go off and, I don't know, break a maybe there's a unfair advantage being given to one of the enemies that you can only overcome if you do an out of combat event and then continue it within combat. So within the tournament. So you have this kind of longer flowing arc. Essentially, this is essentially the ability to add events to tournaments. Simple. And I guess this is continuous story. That kind of like falls underneath it. I don't think we'd want this disrupt outside of continuing a story. Manipulating the crowd is kind of the excitement system. And of course, organizing yourself, not relevant for the festivals. They will just be festivals. So we would want a option here, which is like advance a story. Advance a story. Talk to a character. Perform an action. Quest linked. This should probably be a special step on a quest so that the actions are controlled by a quest. Okay. And the last one is rewards. Rewards are something that is definitely lacking, especially in the festival ones. Oh, actually, they're lacking everywhere, but festival ones part of it. The rewards here are currently the title, but it's very minor what it does, and it also doesn't really doesn't provide much. Once you've got it, you just get some money, and that's about it. Of course, you get the realm breaking, but that shouldn't be a core reason to do the tournaments, because it only applies if you do tournaments over your level, and it's limited to people who are already very good at games. So, not something we want to be the core reward. Yeah, the base one obviously is the titles. Those should stay. They are very cool, thematic. We have lots of stuff tied off of them. Definitely want that. We also want Spirit Stones. Yep, a buff is good. I like that idea. Buff. There we go, buff. So part of this as well, and I'm just going to put this above it. At the moment, you either win or you lose. Now, most tournaments in fiction don't have this hard cutoff. They have reward brackets. So, especially with the size of tournaments, a common one would be there is 10,000 entries into this tournament, and the top 100 get something, and then the top 10 get something better, and then the number 1 gets something even better. So we probably want, obviously, 10,000 people is not feasible for the size of this world. That would be an excessive number, but we are. Wait, how many people do we have? Where's my internet? We have 32 contestants currently. If we're going to have 5 rounds, I'm assuming my maths is correct on that one. So we probably want to have if you get to the semi-finals, you get something, and if you get to the finals, you get something better, and if you win, you get something even better. So it's essentially, do you get to round 4? Do you get to round 5, or do you win it? I'm going to need to rearrange this in a second. Top. Wait, what would it be? Top 3? Yeah, I mean, I guess we can just link it to rounds. So get to round 3, 4. Yeah, 3, 4. That's not way 3. 3, 4, 5. I guess you'd call it round 6 for a winner. So you have this. As long as you get through the first couple of rounds, you will get something. And then that something will keep getting better the further you manage to get until you win and you get the maximum reward. I kind of like the idea of there being actual items. Maybe there are exclusive artifacts or recipes. Things that are relevant to the school. Something that makes it feel like you are getting something special for Fist by winning the Fist tournament over just the title. Something that really helps you. That would probably be like a round 5/winner kind of reward. Something where it gives you a permanent stat boost. So you'd have to be able to get it only from any tournament. So maybe you get a stat pill and you can only take 5 of them or something across the whole game, and you get them from placing highly in tournaments, no matter where those tournaments are. Pills with limit. I think the tournament pool would have to be quite expansive reward-wise, especially if we're going to have rewards which are linked to both excitement and your placement. They will need to have a significant pool, so you feel like you get a ton of stuff at the end. Now, another trope which is, I think, severely lacking is the recognition, the masters. Okay, so you can have techniques. Maybe you can have exclusive techniques you get from winning each formation, each school tournament. That could be fun. Techniques. Now, recognition, that was a thing that I wanted to think about. One of the other tournaments we'll have, and this will come in the future, is the sect system. There will be tournaments to enter the sect and get promoted. These should also have most similar mechanics, but will have a greater focus on that you gain the attention of someone who can help you, a master, a mentor. How you'd represent that outside? Maybe it's a character you unlock. You have to hit a certain threshold of excitement, and then you'll permanently unlock an optional follower character that you can take with you that buffs that particular school. It's actually a really good idea. I like that one. I'm really glad someone thought of that. Unlock school focused character follower specifically on high excite. Now, of course, this could be, instead of a follower, it could be like a full character. That making it just a follower, something that like the Dharma protectors you can get at the sect, something along those lines, where you can then add them as a aid if you're going mono school, which a lot of people like to play. I mean, I like to play mono school as much as I can. It just keeps the game a bit simpler. So, one thing to add to this, and I think this part of the interactivity, is should you be able to watch the other fights? This one I'm not sure on. I'm not sure if this would be good or enjoyable. But the ability to sit down and just watch the fight of some NPC, two of the NPCs, partially to see what their build is, but partially just to actually confirm that it is real. This could be linked to the gambling. That is the question, right? Would you actually want to do so? How many people would even do it and see it play out? I don't know. Having it be just like, I think in Tale of Immortal, you do have the option to watch it, but generally you just essentially auto resolve and it just animates for like half a second and then that's it. It gives you like a flash and they bounce off each other or something. So again, it's been a while. I might be completely misremembering how it works. There is that option that might make people feel like it's a bit more real. But I don't know. Something to think about. Yeah, the build would be the thing that you would potentially know about, but I think it's actually quite rare for people to change their builds based on the build of the opponent. At least from what I've seen, it feels like most people would far prefer just to run whatever they currently have, whatever they've got available, and hope it does the trick. There's no real planning or countering a particular formation or particular setup. Sorry, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you're just like, well, I guess it wasn't my day. Now, if people do actually look at the builds and care about it, then the ability to scout or watch the fights or look at that kind of information would actually be kind of useful. Something we'd have to think about. Yep. Yeah. So. How does that look for a rough overview outline of what a Ascent from the Mountains festival tournament might look like? We have ourselves mostly the same setup, though of course the UI would need to change to be a bit shinier. It is 5 rounds instead of whatever it currently is, which is 3. It is one-on-one combat. Oh, these are not attached. They're attached. Cool. It is your standard one-on-one combat. It lasts for 5 full rounds, so 32 rather than 8 competitors. Note, as a result of this, the way, and this is more of an internal thing, currently every single option that can fight, I think we have between 10 and 15 characters to find for each tournament, for each school. So that's hundreds. We'd have to sort of recycle some of the builds because I'm not making like, what would it even be? It would be 400 builds? Wait, let me do the maths. But at minimum, it's 32 builds times 6, and there is body forging, wooden opening, key condensation, core formation times 4, 768 unique builds. I'm not making almost 1,000 builds. So we will definitely need an alternative way of building these, potentially just having a smaller pool of maybe 10 builds that we recycle over the characters. Oh god, yeah, that'd be so much work. Oh. I mean, maybe we can sort of maybe I can actually just mine the builds the players use for these tournaments and then just use those. And that could be kind of fun, actually. Just have them sort of slowly get better or worse, depending on how good the players are, of course. Ooh, that's not a bad idea, actually. Let me write that one down. Store builds players use in the tournaments for use by the enemies. That would, over time, majorly improve my ability to structure all of these. Store that's not how you spell store. Store in database. Think on build test validity through balance test framework. Oh, I didn't know you could resize. That's cool. So we need an ability to have each. It would need to be restricted to ones that actually do well. Restrict to builds that pass at least 3 rounds. At least 2 rounds. So they have a variety of qualities. Yeah, that's a cool idea. I think that might save my sanity quite heavily, actually. Cool. So yeah, anyway, where were we? The combat is longer, so the tournament is longer. It's still one-on-one. It should have a better view, a better rendering, a better UI to make you feel more invested in the characters or invested in what's going on. It should have clear named rival characters, or ones with custom march, let's say, because they all got names. You have one that's supposed to be the champion, the one that you will face at the end. Then you have your recurring characters that might appear in multiple tournaments with their own little story arcs. Now, of course, that might not happen as like a V1, the recurring ones, but it's something that we should build support for. Between each fight, you should have the option to do a number of different things, like advance the story of those recurring characters, buff yourself, heal yourself, once per tournament, for sabotage, gamble on other fighters. Each step, so that would be 4 different actions throughout the tournament to give you that interlude and do something. The excitement system, a way of representing the crowd in the combat itself and representing your interaction with them, as well as being the link to you opposing challenges upon yourself that you then need to build around, or potentially just keep in mind. Like, I wouldn't expect someone to make a completely new build for, say, winning fast, but maybe that's when they burn their items to win faster. Or the other way around, they normally would take regeneration pills, but they would avoid for a fight because they have the don't use items. Things like that, where there is a incentive to do something slightly different, but also the action of getting 3 options and then having to pick from them what best suits your build is that interactivity that I think people like, where they being asked to make a choice that feels impactful. Even if it's only a small impact, it still feels nice to make that choice. That, as well as the other stuff, would then feed into improved rewards. So the end of the tournament would give you a lot more different things, and there would be a variety of tiers to that. So you'd have, well, to be honest, we could probably do all of the ones that we've got listed here as options of things you could get. You'd have the title at the top, as usual, and Spirit Stones, again, as we currently have it. Anyone who got to, say, round 3 or higher would get a year-long buff to your school. Actually, you know what? Make it a 6-year-long buff so that you can keep it up permanently if you keep winning every tournament. That would be cool. You would have potential of having unique items, recipes, artifacts, talismans, stat pills, essentially. Unique techniques. And actually, this is something on a slight tangent. I want to make the sect manuals feel more impactful by potentially giving every manual a technique you can only get from that manual. So you actually have an incentive to buy the manuals because they have exclusive techniques in them. Yep, elixirs will be good. I know, especially in the early game, when I was doing my playthrough, I definitely felt there was a lack of good ways of getting key. I wasn't playing efficiently, and I think that I won't be the only one feeling that way. So getting elixirs would be I think would feel good. Especially if you're doing like the body forging tournament, you'd be like, oh damn, now I can actually afford to, well, maybe you get them, then you break through and you're like, oh damn, now I can actually afford to master all my techniques because I've got keys from it. A school-focused follower, maybe if you beat the champion then is someone who says like, I really respect you, I'd be happy to travel with you and help you. And then they come along and they give you some sort of boost to that skill, that school, sorry. And that allows you to layer on all of these different boosts from different sources to really boost your your boost. How many times did I say boost in that sentence? I think that would, this is the festival tournament. I think that would make the festival tournaments a lot more exciting. And then we want to do things like the alchemy tournaments, the sect tournament. Maybe we change up the format for different. We have other tournaments that occur that have a different format. Yep, yeah. Once we have some more fleshing out of a system of disciples, which will come with like an elder system as part of the sect system. The idea of collecting them from around the world. Maybe you go to the tournament, you find someone that you think is good, and you induct them into the sect as your disciple and a sect member. And you can go around to different locations and collect, like Pokemon, you collect your favorite disciples to build up your most powerful team to do stuff. They won't help you in combat, not all the time at least, but they will be able to do like missions and things on your behalf. Something like that, where it feels like you are making a choice over who you want to include and who you don't. And yeah, the tournaments could be a source for that. Yeah, the other things I'd like to include, like for example, Shenhenda should totally have a beast hunting tournament where it's potentially it could even be the replacement for the Beast Wave system in Shenhenda is a proper tournament where you have to constantly go out and seek beasts to fight, and you get a certain number of points based on what you challenge, that kind of thing. And then you get rewards based on how well you place against the other characters. We've also got the alchemy tournaments. They will obviously need a completely different format. I'm thinking for those, I'm just quickly brain dumping here because I'm almost out of time. The alchemy tournament should probably have a similar excitement mechanic to the combat ones, but the elders are linked to the sublimes, and this is building on top of the new sublime system, where certain judges may have an opinion towards different sublimes that are better. And so you need to pick the Sublime to use to craft with to get higher points. And you can, and you're kind of encouraged to vary it up to sort of make the most novel items to get the highest points. We'd also want the sect promotion one should be similar to this, but obviously we don't need like rivals for those or like, as many rewards. But you do have a maybe it's about getting a better room in the sect, or there is tiers to the resource you get to the sect based on how well you place in the yearly sect tournament, or maybe the decade Lee. What's the word for every decade, every 10 years? So I won't think on that one for too long. Decadely, we'll say. Tournament where you have a ability to place yourself against your other members, and of course, get promoted. Beyond the individual placements, maybe get to become a core disciple, or then eventually become an elder. Decennial. That does not roll off the tongue as well as I'd hoped. What other kind of tournaments we want? Oh yeah, the intersect tournament. Now that's one where we want a lot more mechanics involved, where there should be unique. To be honest, we could probably copy some of Tale of Immortal on that one, where you have a picker-based matchup where you can, as a player, you can only fight one, and you have to pick some of your fellow disciples that maybe you have aided and improved to then fight other opponents, and based on their build and your build and the allies' build, you can try and do a matchup that you think they'll win. Something on those lines, where it's still got the combat element, but you have this focus on other people. Could be cool. So it's quite a lot that's going to go into this particular overhaul, because I definitely think tournaments are a very strong part of the fiction of Lancia that we really want to be able to hit to make the game just feel more grounded in the fantasy of the world, of the genre, should I say. And with that, I have talked for 2 hours straight. I am exhausted, and I will call it there. So thank you for joining me on my very visually exciting stream of drawing in Excalibur. Now, we'll probably do a bit more of this to write out the shape of how the other tournaments might look before we then try and translate this into gameplay mechanics and gameplay aspects and actually try and build it. There is obviously a very large design portion before the actual building starts. We'll see. I might do it early. I have a feeling I will have a lot of work to do fixing all the Sublime bugs that will come, given we'll be releasing that soon, and that's big rework. So this may take a back burner until that's stable. But yeah, we'll see where it goes. With that, thank you so much for joining me once again and listening to me talk. Have a fantastic day, and catch you all next stream on Monday. Bye all.